Not gonna lie, when I first read this question, I almost pooped my pants a little bit because my first thought is I took it at face value, which was like, yeah, the secret code that is meaning behind what Bring Kaiser's name literally was to get rid of regulars. So when I first read it, and I remembered Yuri saying that same thing to Bam, my first thought was like, you better not be trying to get rid of my best boy. So I'm like, I literally started like going through this whole mental dilemma when I was like, no, like this can't be happening to Bam. And like, I actually got really nervous for a second. And then I stepped back and I was like, wait a minute, I am forgetting the one big keynote in all this. And that was, for a second in my life, I almost downplayed my love for Yuri. And then I realized that Yuri is not only the baddest of the G's, but she is the best girl. And she will never do my boy Bam dirty at all. And I almost had to hurt myself for ever forgetting that, because my love for her will always reign true. And it made
AoA, that's a triple play. New episodes, I can't wait. Yeah. Open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AoA, check me out. Look, clocked in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AoA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with my boy Isaiah.
Yo, yo, yo.
And Gavin.
What is Gucci shoes?
And today we are talking about Tower of God, of course, Season 2 of the Webtoon, chapters 196 to 204. If you did not catch our live stream yet where we went over these chapters, you definitely want to check that out. We also posted our reactions to the blog posts that concern these chapters as well, so you definitely want to check out that discussion if you haven't already. But here today, we are going to take a little bit more of a deep dive analysis on what we had read, make some predictions, and talk about some lore, all that kind of good stuff. And a big shout out to all the folks in our Discord server who voiced their opinions on the topics that they wanted to hear us talk about. We compiled the top 7 due to the amount of votes that they received. And these are the questions that we are taking into consideration today when we have said discussion. Yeah. So let's hop right into it. Gavin, how about you read us off the first question, if that's cool, and what we could go in order from there, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay. So number 1 we have by X Guerrera.
Big shout out.
All right. So what do you think of that the Blue Demon speech? His entire monologue was actually very interesting because he made several good points. Right off the bat, he started to roast Bam's desire to save everyone. Are your choices always right? Certainly not. You obtain your powers, Thorn and Souls, through the sacrifice of others. You may be comforting yourself, believing you have kept everyone safe so far, but you have only stomped over those who were not chosen by you. All right. The justice that you dream of is, at the very least, not within you. What do you think of this monologue?
What do you think about it?
Interesting. Well, it's tough. Oh, wait, was I not supposed to read it? Or was I? Never mind.
I should read it.
Oh, my bad. No, because normally like it's reading, so I was like,
no,
did I mess that
go
up?
for it.
Right.
I mean, the camera's on you. Might as well.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, it's interesting because in many aspects, it's true with his monologue. Like, obviously, anybody who Bam has encountered, he has to overcome to, make his goal into fruition. So it's crazy when you look at Bam in taking these comments, because I almost feel like a past Bam would have almost crumbled in a sense, where he wouldn't have been able to deal with the choices that he has made to get to this point. And I feel like to some extent, he still has that inner conflict where he's like, what am I doing? Is it the right thing? Like, am I really crushing people? Like, I just feel like for me, I've really seen the growth in that Bam being able to accept the choices that he's made and almost understanding that, okay, this is XYZ thing that I did. This is what I need to do. I know what I need to do. And at the end of the day, like, I need to kind of live with the choices that I make and keep on moving forward with them. So it's hard because it's almost like, in ways, I feel like it's true what he's saying, because some of it is. Like, you can't just kind of put a big blanket on it and say that, oh, everything that this blue demon is saying is wrong, because it's not. In a way, he does have to step over people to get where he wants to be. But the contention is not really do these people deserve to be stepped on, but what choices do you have to make that you feel are right, and is it like your or is it correct that you're deciding that your choice is the right one, in a sense? Like, I'm trying to think of a way to word this. This isn't weird, but it brings up a cool moral dilemma to Bam that I feel like you can't just write off. It's always going to be there. Bam's always going to have to live with it. And I definitely want to keep an eye on Bam moving forward in terms of how he's able to accept certain decisions when, when his back's against the wall and he has to really decide, do I need to kill X person? Do I need to hurt X person? Like, what can I, if I'm Bam, can I, Bam, make this decision right now to move forward? Or am I going to get stuck and, cement myself into these really precarious situations that might put people in danger? And is that right or wrong or not? And what's that whole moral dilemma entail? So, it's very nice that SIU is introducing a character like this Blue Demon who's almost like this inner conflict within Bam, who's like almost the good and bad devil, where it's like, hey, just don't like blindly look over the decisions that you're making. Like, they do have repercussions on other people, even if they're bad people, and you're going to have to wake up every morning and face yourself with these decisions. And, you can either brush them off and say, yeah, those guys deserved it. They needed it. I need to move forward. Or you really got to reflect on it and be like, okay, moving forward with next people I meet, how am I going to, what's my dynamic with these situations? Am I just kind of move around them? Am I going to try to do things differently? Like, what is my decision as Bam, in making my next decision to move forward, like down my own path? So I am interested in seeing what's going to happen. I do like how they're bringing in this internal monologue conflict with him. I do think that there is reason to what the demon is saying, although obviously it is shadowed between whatever desires this demon has, which is obviously taking control over Bam. So take it with a grain of salt. It is not all truth, but there is a little bit of there is a little glimmer in silver lining that that Bam should take away, and should, especially for making decisions forward that will also impact other people. So that is my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about this at length in our last discussion, although not formatted in the same style of question, but are Bam's choices, are they naive or whatever? So I won't go too hard on my opinions, because if you watch that last episode, you could really get the full take on what my thoughts are on that, which, the Spark Notes version is, yeah, Bam is very fortunate because for the situations that he's in, and I don't discount him for trying to make those decisions, but it would be naive of us not to think that he has gotten some pretty lucky breaks in those terms of being able to save everyone, because I don't believe it's going to be like that for all of time. So this demon within him is kind of pointing out the obvious at this rate, which is something that Bam might need to hear, and I'm glad he is hearing it. Although, again, like Gavin said, we want to take what this guy says with a grain of salt. We want to form that yin and yang, right? Bam, we even read this in the blog post that SIU was trying to implement the character of the demon into Bam, because Bam, he deems as like this very pure being, right? And it's like he's almost like he needs to give him some sort of inner conflict to kind of humanize him, right? And I think this was a good way of doing it for sure. And I think that the monologue is very interesting, but the reason it's very interesting is because, at least in my mind, we all in the back of our mind kind of know it's true, right? And it's like, you don't want to admit it, but in those and like, obviously the demon's motivations are definitely more aligned towards the negative. So
Exactly.
It's like, well, why, you should just stomp over people anyway. That's what you're going to do, blah, blah, which we don't have to take it like that. We could be cognizant of that fact and then try and, orient ourselves towards a path of positivity, towards, enlightenment or whatever, but also keep it in the back of your mind that it's like, there might be a time, like I said last week, where you can't save everyone. There's not going to be this Deus Ex Machina that's going to come down and just be like, here, take this ridiculous power so you can get out of this one by the skin of your teeth. It's not always going to happen. So he's going to have to, so I think we see this, and this is actually a question, so I won't go too far into it, but when Wangnan decides to leave and Bam is like, yeah, go. You know what I mean? Like, go. And he has the flash of this demon in his head at that moment, and you're led to believe in that regard that like Bam makes that decision, says go ahead, because he knows that Bam is going to also be thrust into his own thing. He knows Wangnan has to make his own commitments. He knows that he's not going to be able to save everyone every single time, and so he needs to kind of let them do their own thing. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I think it's, in my head, it's a little bit like it's a little bit more about one of the conflicts that I think is interesting with Bam's character is like his desire to save everybody, villains included, right? Like, it's one thing that Bam is like, well, I want to save all my friends. It's kind of like, well, no shit. I mean, they're your friends. That's nice. But the fact that he would go so far as to be like, no, everybody is worth saving, even if, we, the viewers, or other allies of his in the story deem said character is not worth saving. An example of this would be the most recent test they took on the Hell Train, where Bam made it an effort and a front to save every single person that was trapped or being thrown down the, like the pit or whatever, regardless of their allegiance, whether it was one of Joaquin's allies or one of his allies. And so what I think is interesting about this demon's monologue here is I think it's referring to that fact where one of the conflicts that I really like about Bam's character is the fact of, okay, I have to climb this tower and I have to ascend it like everybody else is, but can I do that in a different way? Everybody else is climbing this tower by, stepping on top of people, throwing away lives at their convenience, this and that. But like, can Bam do that? Can he climb the tower, but in his way? Can he do it by saving everybody? Can he do it by forging friendships and alliances? And I think what the demon is calling into question here is the fact that eventually you are going to have to, like, the way that he's going to have to look at, like, lives in a different way than he does now. And I think whether that means, like, one of the things that I think this current arc that we're in now with the, the name hunt station, is like going to address is just that. The fact that, like, if Bam can't be comfortable with taking a life or letting a life go when it's like an enemy's life or when he absolutely needs to, that's going to be the kind of decision that ends up costing him the life of one of his friends or one of his allies. So I think the demon is like, if you're, like he said, like, you can use this to comfort yourself and call it whatever you like, but at the end of the day, whether you're letting a friend die or you're letting an enemy die, you have to understand and be comfortable with the fact that, like, you are letting a life die, and that sometimes whatever situation you're in may call for that to be the most plausible scenario. And if you don't want to make that choice, or you can't accept that, like, it might come at an even greater cost, like, in your failure to come to terms with that.
Really, I agree with that to an extent, but I do find one part of this guy's monologue interesting that kind of goes against the grain with that statement, and it's something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, that you are not the justice that you seek, and he says that it's what does he say? I think it's in here. Your choices are always right. Yeah. Certainly not. You obtain your power, soul, and soul through the sacrifice of others. You may be comforting yourself, believing you have kept everyone safe so far, but you have only stomped over those who are not chosen by you, which is interesting. The justice that you dream of is at the very least not within you. What do you think of this monologue? So I don't know. I find that interesting because it's not that I disagree with you necessarily, because we do have pretty blatant examples of that, at least in the most recent ones. But there are certain scenarios too where, you get your people like your Reflejo or your whoever, just to, name one. And, Bam is not necessarily diving to save those people either. And there are some people where, he seems to be a little more angry towards, and I wonder if it was more, and this is just to throw a wrench in things. I'm not saying this is my opinion, but I'm just to provide a counter thing here. I wonder if, Bam saving the guy with the big drill bit, the Mad Dog, one of the Mad Dogs, in that scenario was more of, I'm going to do this because it's in direct opposition of what Joaquin stands for, because Joaquin said, like, like, screw that guy, I've killed billions of people, whatever, and it's like, you're scum, knowing that you are such the visceral opposite, like, I'm going to go for him, or it wasn't. Again, I'm not saying that's my opinion. I'm just posing a question. I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments on that, because last week I was very firmly in the mindset, and I kind of still am, that, like, Bam would have tried to probably save that guy anyway, in general, but, like, that line, I guess, in this monologue trips me up, because we know that this thorn, this manifestation, seems to be this, this inner machination in Bam's mind. I don't think it's fully that it's a totally separate entity than Bam. I think it is part of Bam, especially indicated by the blog post saying we needed to give him that inner duality. So, being that part of Bam, in a sense, is saying that, I find that interesting, and I think it throws a wrench into what I had previously thought last week. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody had thoughts on that, but I certainly don't. Again, I'm not saying that's my opinion. I'm just offering that as like I don't know, when I like throw that in the air. It trips me up.
I think that part of the monologue still kind of works with what I was saying, where, like, again, if Bam is somebody who's like, I'm going to save everybody, like, every person's life is precious to me. Just the fact that he was not jumping at the chance, let's say, to save someone like Refalejo, who, for all intents and purposes, was the bad guy or was the guy who was causing harm to Bam and his friends, or, like, that's still a human life. That's still a life that Bam let go. So, again, my point here is that I think this demon is saying, like, again, sugarcoat it, call it whatever you want. Like, you are not dishing out the justice you think you are, because by making these calls and deciding to go the path you're going, there are lives you're going to have to let go. There are people you're going to have to let die, whether they be, on your side or not. But you have to be able to accept that. You have to be able to come to terms with that and call it for what it is. It's not this like self-righteous justice. You're not, you are doing what everybody else is doing, right? You are, climbing the tower, like, whatever that means.
Yeah. I guess it's just interesting because I find the demon, I don't find it seems that we frame it in the sense that the demon is like trying to teach a lesson.
Exactly.
Where it's like, I feel like the demon is more like kind of hanging it over your, like making it more of like a dig at Bam. You know what I mean? More of like an insult rather than a lesson learned. And I think that's how we're perceiving it. And that's how Bum now is going to take it, like, okay, let's take the things that he said and, take them to heart. But I don't know. I don't know if the demon is trying to be like, hey, listen, like, make sure when you're going forward that you're going about these things in this way. I think it's more like, no, this is what you are. So, like, the sooner you come to grips with that, you absorb people. That's what you do. You know what I mean? The better.
Yeah, I think it's like it's both, right? I mean, because we've talked about this before, where like so many anime use this trope of like confronting your darker side or confronting your true self. And it's like, that's what this is. This demon, like you said, it's not this like separate entity that's like trying to screw Bam over or trying to like this is part of Bam. So like, again, in that, if we're talking about that trope specifically, like all the time we hit this thing where it's like, no, dude, I'm not just bashing on you to bash on you. Like, I'm a part of you. This is a part of you you need to confront and learn to deal with. But that in itself is a lesson, like, to learn. So again, whether this dude is putting on glasses and writing on a chalkboard, he is still teaching Bam a lesson. This is a vital lesson that Bam's going to need to know for climbing a tower in the future, which is like, learn to own up to the decisions you make and call them for what they are, not sugarcoating them behind this false sense of justice or this, this idea of like, I'm going to do things differently. And again, whether that actually happens is not the point. I think this demon being a part of Bam is trying to make sure, maybe make sure, and that's the wrong phrasing, but like is indirectly teaching Bam a lesson, right? Because if Bam can come to terms with this, if he can understand the word, like, again, you hear this thing, what it's saying, and if you take it at face value, it's like, oh yeah, he's insulting Bam. But it's like, no, I think there's a meaning behind the words that he's saying, and if you take it as an insult on face value, you're sort of failing to get like the truth behind you. You're failing to get like what this thing is trying to actually like reiterate to Bam.
So kind of, I feel it. Well, I don't want to harp on this question like too much for a lot longer.
We'll end it off with you then.
Well, so this demon is obviously trying to take over Bam. It's the darkness inside of him. So I feel like he's not trying to teach him a lesson. At the end of the day, he is telling Bam these things to hopefully put Bam in a negative state of mind to be like, okay, take over. Like, this is like, I feel like this is almost him trying to just put Bam down to rock bottom, to feel like absolute crap, to then make Bam succumb to his power to this get what he desires, which is to overcome Bam and his body and his state. That's kind of like what this power was introduced for. It's like the inner turmoil in Bam that even Thor said when he met him. He's like, yeah, don't let this, like, when you meet him, don't let him take over your body, because that happened to Jihad, and that's what changed everything. So, indirectly, if Bam takes what he's saying and doesn't crumble, but then actually takes it, like, and learns from it, that is Bam interpreting what this guy is saying and then applying it to his daily life, and thus changing the route of his future and not succumbing to this power. But I feel like the intentions of said power isn't to make Bam a better person. It's actually to put him at rock bottom so he can then take over Bam and have him crumble in said like problems. Sure. So that's like kind of just my thought of it. Yeah, I don't think he's really trying to teach Bam. It's really, he's just trying to knock him down a peg and be like, yeah, I want to take you over. Like, let me take you over. Let me have that power. And Bam's like, no, but I know what you said, and I am learning something from it, and I'm going to apply it to my daily life.
Sure, yeah.
That is it.
For anyone watching, so long as it's not a spoiler, or if you already know, but if you don't, and you just had opinions on it, let us know. What do you think the deal is with this? Anyway, moving on to the second question we have by Dark North Emperor. Thank you very much. Thoughts on the temporary return of Jewel Viol Grace? Will Bam have to resort to this often in the future? How will this affect his efforts to leave Thug behind? Also, to add on to the above, how dope is it to see Shibisu back again flexing his brain? So, yes, it was awesome to see Shibisu again. He's one of my personal favorites, and I think a fan favorite amongst us as well. He's pretty awesome, so that was sweet. The temporary return of Jewel Viol Grace was cool. You already watched our episode where Gavin and I almost killed each other over his hairdo, so I have to say I do like our Bomb right now. I'm more of a fan. If we're going to compare Jewel Viol Grace personality to Bomb, I'm a bigger fan of Bomb personally, so I could do without that, but I understand the necessity for it, in the sense that the name that Jewel Viol Grace has behind him has the entire backing of Fug behind him. He has the entire backing of the citizenry that want Jihad dethroned, and this tower changed, regardless of how that is changed. They don't even know what exactly they want to be changed about it for the most part. They just want it changed. So I do think it is very important that he, is able to use that alias to his advantage, or to benefit those around him, right? Because it has this revolution, they even mention it, style effect, where whenever he comes on scene, Jewel Viol Grace is known amongst these regulars as to some a savior, to some a slayer, to some the devil, right? But regardless, that name carries so much weight. So I totally see why they introduced him, and I think that he could use this in the future again, potentially. They might not want to outdo it because there's maybe only so many times he could wear the wig and get away with that. But I understand the effect. And it, how he, you also followed up the question by saying, how will this affect his efforts to leave Fug behind? They won't be the best. I mean, I guess, he is on the run from them just in general anyway. But I guess if you're talking about more of a mental note of it, or I shouldn't need the power of Jewel Viol Grace type thing, I could totally see your point there. And I don't really have an answer personally in terms of how it's gonna shake up. But I am curious to hear your thoughts if you had any, Isaiah.
I think the Shibisu thing, it's definitely cool to see Shibisu come back and sort of flex his brain muscles as the team leader. I do like the return of Jewel Viol Grace, because the thing is, Jewel Viol Grace and Bam are two sides of the same coin. So when I think it's interesting that, again, we talk about and this kind of leads into the second point of the question, where it's Jewel Viol Grace is not. It is something that's separate now from Bam, right? This is a separate identity. It's a separate, legend. It's its own thing. This is, he is the Slayer candidate that's going to, help Fug and free, all of the oppressed and the downtrodden from Jihad and the 10 Great Families. And so that innately comes with a different set of expectations and circumstances than Bam wants, right? I mean, that was part of his whole struggle when he was in Fug, when he was Jewel Viol Grace, which was, people coming to him and viewing him and putting him on this pedestal and seeing him as this god figure that he clearly doesn't want and doesn't want to be a part of and doesn't, agree with. There's a moment here where one of the random citizens comes up and, basically pleads with Bam to oh, you've got to take down Kaiser. You he's this crazy guy. He's he's doing all these fucked up things and this and that. And Kun kind of throws him down and gives him this tough love or whatever you want to call it sentiment, which is look, dude, your problems are your own problems, and just because this X thing happened to you doesn't make it Jewel Viol Grace or Bam's responsibility to fix them. And not in as harsh a way, but Bam clearly shares similar sentiments where it's I am not doing this for all these people. I'm not doing this because I'm their god. I'm not doing this because I see myself as the almighty hammer to be brought down on Jihad and his whole empire. At least in Bam's mind, it seems to be a much simpler objective of I just don't. He fundamentally he does not agree with the way Jihad and by extension the 10 Great Families are running things, right? With all of the injustice that he has seen, but I don't know. It's interesting to me because this story for me, at least much more now in season 2, I've had this idea rolling in my head of the interesting duality here between someone like Bam and someone like Rachel. Just to go real quick, is that Rachel is somebody who is not the main character of the story, but 100% sees herself as the main character and will not settle for having any other role that's less than the main character. Where Bam is the main character and is an essential player in this game, but does not see himself or does not want to be. So it's this interesting duality between somebody who is thrust in the middle and at the center of the situation, but doesn't want that attention. He doesn't want that power. He doesn't want that expectation, I want to say, placed on him. And so I think what's interesting about Jewel Viola Grace is it's the flip, right? Jewel Viola Grace is exactly everything Bam doesn't like. He's this all-powerful figure who is the centerpiece of this organization, who is, for all intents and purposes, a god in most people's eyes. And so I think what the idea of, like, is this going to make it harder for him to leave Fug behind? Well, yeah, I think this was one of the darkest parts of Bam's life, right? When he was in sort of the Jewel Viola Grace mantra and doing, had to go through all that stuff. So to have this sort of like, I don't know how often it will end up coming back, whatever, thrust in his face is a reminder, of all the things that he had to go through to become Jewel Viola Grace, but also a reminder of like what kind of presence and danger Fug represents and can present to him and the life that he already has with his friends and, stuff which is the life he wants. So I think it's going to be, again, weirdly reminiscent of the demon thing, where I think like there's going to have to be some sort of, I guess, like interlocking or some sort of like way that Bam and Jewel Viola Grace like come to these identities come to terms with one another, because if not, they're always going to sort of clash in this traumatic sense where like Bam just I think there's a part of Jewel Viola Grace that Bam needs to take away from that identity, but the problem is like there's a lot of baggage, right, and stuff that is also tied with that identity that he doesn't need to take with him. But I do think it's interesting that, like, again, this isn't going to be something he can just kind of like shrug off and be like, whatever, that was a dark part of my life. Like, it's like, no, this is a problem or this is a thing you're going to have to deal with whether you like it or not.
Interesting stuff. Gavin, do you have thoughts or no?
Thoughts. Well, I'll just go quick through the question. So, I mean, come on, dude, the wig. I mean, like, yeah, refer back to Ian's fight that he mentioned. But, dude, I'm just saying, hey, I'm not going to lie. When we first saw Jewel Viola Grace, all we did was compliment that man on his never-ending drip. And every time we saw him, we're like, Bam's getting that poon. Bam's getting that poon. He's getting those ladies because he's looking hot and fire. And I'm just saying, he's been lacking a little bit. I haven't really seen him being like, Bam, you got that drip back. Like, no, if anything, he has went down a peg. So that's all I'm saying. I enjoyed it. And, he looked like a straight savage. So, yeah, my boy, he was such a savage. That is why I like Jewel Viola Grace. Like, I'm not going to lie, this whole, like, the innocent, like schoolboy, like, kid, look, like, it's just something that you see so many times with the main characters. And I just want to see a man go crazy in hardcore, not give a F. And that was his character as Jewel Viola Grace. I liked it. It was nice getting that wig back and seeing him in his almost former glory. I'm just playing. But no, it was pretty dope. For affecting Fug, Isaiah went hammaloni and cheese on it. I'm not beating that horse anymore. So I actually agree with everything you said. So copy paste that. And Shibisu flexing his brains. Not only was it amazing, I miss my boy Shibisu, but my favorite moment of him this entire read through was his contact of Kun in his pocket, which was Kun, my love. I thought that was the most hilarious thing ever, and I respect my boy that much more because Kun's looking fly, and he ain't waiting on him. So we got you, Shibisu. You're on me and Isaiah's team on with Love and Kun, so I respect that. But yeah, I think that's all I got for that question.
Well put, Gavin. Isaiah, you want to fire off the next question? Do you have it there, or do you want us to get it?
That or I can read it either or.
No, I got it.
No, you're good.
All right, so the third question actually also comes from Dark North Emperor, which is initial thoughts on the Name Hunt Station, the rules that allow the theft of names and the missions to take Kaiser's the mission to take Kaiser's name, one of the top D rank regulars.
Any thoughts?
I think it's cool. I think it's obviously, or at least it was very hearkening to me, a parallel to like the system of the tower as a whole, right? With Jihad, the 10 great families, and everybody else who's underneath them. That's the in a larger scale, that's the system that this name, or I'm sorry, on a smaller scale, being the Name Hunt place. It builds off the same kind of system, right? Where it ends up creating these people who are up top and have all the power, all the names, and then you have people underneath them who are, they've called them the no-named, who are direct servants to the people who have names because they're giving them this name, which in essence in this station is a power to have. And then there's everybody else in the middle. And so obviously the people who are the 10, whether we're talking about the 10 great bosses, Kaiser himself, are directly inherit from that kind of authority and that kind of status, whereas the no names don't. And I mean, we again look no further than the guy who sort of like jumped on Kun and or Bam at that one moment to see what kind of life or what kind of trauma, I guess, being a no name for X amount of time can induce and put somebody through. I definitely think it's interesting that there's, that coupled with the fact that the 10 grade families like are directly correlate with and work with and communicate with this station and sort of interact with the system, kind of just creates this like perpetual feed, right? Of like the tower, Jihad, and the 10 grade families want to oppose the system that they have on the tower, right? But like by feeding into this station and by sort of helping to supply the no name hunt station with regulars and the people that they want to get rid of, it is essentially like a feedback loop, right? If they give these people, the 10 grade bosses, the people, the named, this like power, this false idea, right, that they are the ones in control here, it perpetuates the ultimate, like the long, term goal that they want, right? And so I think it's interesting that Shibasu's idea basically was like, oh no, I'm not trying to like just scare the bosses out of hiding, basically, and like get these like, I'm trying to threaten the entire ecosystem that they've established here, because I think it calls into play again if we're paralleling the No Name Hunt ecosystem to the tower as a whole. The overarching mission of Bam and his team, which is like, if we can dethrone and de-establish the ecosystem here in this station, maybe there's something like, maybe that is in a small way proof that the tower as a whole can change. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I ditto those. I mean, my biggest thing was, the connections between the larger thing at play here. This is like literally the whole Jihad thing, but just on like way smaller scale. So those were my thoughts on it. I guess I was a little confused with like the whole no name thing, like just in general, but it's like more to me, like I understand, at least to me, it's more of like a symbolism thing, where it's like, okay, they can technically function in their lives. It's not like they're like, I don't know. It's like made up to be. It's like, oh my God, I don't have a name. And then just, you know what I mean? Like they run in circles like a chicken with their head cut off.
I think it's like if you don't have a name, I think if I remember correctly, the way that they state it is like you need permission to exit. Like you can't leave the station of your own volition, right? You need permission to exit the station. But in order to exit the station or be granted permission to, you need a name. So if you don't have a name, you are essentially like that is the end of you're stuck there.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Where it's like it's more than just, oh my gosh, I don't have a name. That really sucks. It's that, no, you not only do you have you need a name to leave. Right. You know what I mean? So you're subject. Yeah. So freedom. Like the name is like, you could substitute name with like another thing. You know what I mean? Like if it's like, okay, they stole your whatever, and you need X thing to leave and you don't have it, etc. So at first I was like, that's interesting. Like they care that much. But, again, I think it was more of like a symbolism thing in that sense. So, came together and it'll be interesting to see where we go from there. I really don't have too many thoughts on it. I don't know if you do, Gavin. But.
Yeah, no, really same thing. It's an interesting sect that we're seeing in this tower that is just like isolated and doing its own thing and going through the rigmarole. And obviously it has ties up to the bigger fruit on the top of the tree. And it's cool seeing how like these ecosystems work underneath that kind of like fly under the radar, but not really, of like actual society, and just like, how it manifests into its own entity in a sense where like people think they're hot crap and they're really not. And it's just, they're being manipulated again by the same people who they're trying to like almost sect away from and be their own power from. Like, it's just an interesting duality that's created. And I'm interesting to see moving forward, what other sects are we going to run across that are being manipulated the same way by higher ups. So, we'll just have to see as they move further along the train, but it definitely is interesting. Yeah,
for sure. So hopping into our next question, Gavin, if you want to take that one away and then tell us your thoughts.
What do we got? So again, by Dark North Emperor.
Kid's on a roll, by the way. If anyone wants to, first of all, if anyone wants to dethrone him, hit us with some fire questions, because his have been very good so far and have gotten a lot of upvotes, so it is what it is. Number 2, he is on the ball. This man is in every single stream. He is making memes like it's his job, quite literally. He's in there, so just saying, get there early, get there and, expound your thoughts here. So Dark North Emperor can't steal them all.
Yeah, you deserve a raise, and you're not going to get one because we don't get paid. No, I'm just playing. We love you. But we got thoughts on Wangnam separating from Bam's squad and in an effort to hunt down Casino. Do you think it's a wise move to split up when Emily is able to manipulate the paths on the train?
ahead.
You're throwing it right to me. Yeah. So it's hard because I love my man Wang Nam, but like again, I feel like it's almost part of his character where he needs to split off from the main group to get his growth. And this is the time where I feel like they're gonna do it because when not better when you're away from the group. So I am curious what problems they're gonna run into because I mean, at face value, they're not inherently that strong of a team compared to everyone else. You know, they really don't have any ace up their sleeve. Like, it's going to be interesting seeing how they fight, what is going to be their dynamic, how they're going to overcome these solutions, and what sort of like power-ups or Zenkai boosts are they going to get. So definitely looking forward to see that. Did I answer that question though?
How you talk for a whole ass minute and not know what you're saying?
Because it's one of those things where I kind of go on in my head and I'm thinking and I'm like, am I answering the question? But no, I did.
You turn up missing.
So how did turn up missing? Do I think it's wise move for them to split up? I don't think it's a wise move to split up. Although I inherently you're gonna say no because we only know what we have seen from Wang Nam, which is a lot in terms of his personality, but in power rankings, like, yes, he has, fought with Iwa. They have got a teamwork, but then again, she's not, traveling with them. So that's one less person who we've really seen him have good chemistry with in terms of fighting. So at face value, no, because you feel like they're just going to get their booty smacked. Although, they've been putting in that work and grinding. So they're not just going to get like bumped off on the first level that they reach. So I guess in a weird way, like in my mind, no, I don't think it's a good thing that they're splitting up, but they have to split up. So it is going to become a good thing just from pure context clues from the plot. So I guess that is how I'm going to answer that question. And with Emily manipulating paths on the train, I'm not going to lie. I'm playing the ignorance card. I completely forgot she could do that. And it kind of actually makes me scared for my own well-being because that makes me feel like that. For him to put this in the question means that A, this is going to happen, and B, their back's going to be against the wall, and C, some crazy crap's going to happen, and yeah, I'm actually kind of scared. So don't die, Wang Nam, and I know you're not because you are the prince of Jihad. So
I mean, so Gavin put that beautifully, but breaking down the question again, thoughts on Wang Nam separating from Bomb's squad in order to hunt down Casino. This is very important. This is the, what makes the man type thing, right? It's like, I made a promise. I'm going to fulfill it. These are my comrades that I've come, I'm not leaving behind. I know there's a bigger thing at play right now, and I would love to come and help you guys, but this is for me. These are for the people that have been with me since the come up, right? Like this is the OG squad. Horyang was like one of the OGs along with Arc Raptor, Misang, the whole nine. Like he has to do this, right? Not just for them, but for himself. Like I said, this is like his ritual, his rite of passage. And I don't know if Wang Nam would be able to live with himself if he had just skirted by on that. He made a promise. He's going to fulfill it. So I totally understand why he's doing it, and I do applaud him for it. And especially because Wang Nam, as we've seen, probably 8 out of 10 times is generally in over his head, but chooses the S rank mission, you know what I mean, in spite of that. And generally through incredibly hard work, great team synergy, and resourcefulness
good luck.
and some good luck, he's able to, get through these things. It will be interesting now, like Gavin had mentioned, being that they don't have, they've been split. SIU's been splitting them quite frequently. So there's always someone that he's missing that it would have been like, wow, that person would have been useful in this situation. So like, he's never at 100%, but now that Bomb is not with him, that's definitely sucks because he was like their DPS, in their squad here. So this will be interesting because I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong here, this is the first. I think might be, and I feel bad saying this, but like when they split here, this might be the weakest his squad is at, like in terms of power level and everyone involved, as compared to some other times that he's been split with different people. So I don't want to speak out of ignorance on that, and I don't want to discount some of the characters that he's with because again, a lot of them have made, great growth over the course of the story and have really proved themselves in more ways than one. But I guess it could be tough when you're comparing, when we immediately now flip the story to like Bomb and Derosi, like, you know what I mean? All these people. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a pretty big power scale. And they're going up against the Devil's right and left arm. They're going against Casino, who, like, let's not forget, dude, like throughout this entire story is like one of the most powerful beings within like the established characters that we know of. Like this guy is ridiculous. He's ridiculous.
I want to add a little bit. Don't forget, Hots versed Casino at half form. Like and he got his booty guapped, you know, and it wasn't like some lighthearted crap. It was, no, you sit down, I'm teaching you, you're about to die. So like that's what I mean. And you know, Wang Nam, by any means at this point, I still, if he were to fight Hots from way back then where Wang Nam is now, I would still probably put money that Hots would beat him, you know? And now, like, looking up, we have Casino at full, like, Devilman Crybaby status here. And, like, Wang Nam, who, like, in many ways seemingly hasn't like, he's grown, obviously, but not to, like, what I would say is even at Hot status way back when. So, like, for me, that just makes me all the more nervous where it's like he's going to have to capture Casino somehow.
For sure.
Which we know is crazy. And then all the other people around Casino,
he's going to have to pull out the stunts as he usually does, and it'll be cool to see what he does. But addressing the second part of the question we have, do you think it's a wise move to split up when Emily is able to manipulate the paths in the train? I mean, if you want the blunt answer, probably not wise. I mean, you know, I mean, that just goes for a general rule of thumb, like, we're stronger as a group type thing. We know that this has to happen frequently in order to not have 38 characters on panel every single time we go into a room. And also to, you know, progress the story in different ways. Like we have to, one squad has to go and achieve this goal, one has to do this, and then their stories interweave. They're with each other for a little while, then they split again, they come together. But, you know, a short answer, a frank answer to that is probably not incredibly wise. I think they're much stronger together. But again, the story does call for it. And like I said, this is something that this is something that Wang Nan can't just shirk to the side. He can't just do that. And the other characters are like, I believe you. I trust that you could do this. You have to understand, which Wang Nan does completely. We have our own thing that we have to do that is equally as important, you know? So like, I'm gonna stay back to our own thing. And Emily able to manipulate the paths on the train, I mean, is a big deal considering right now they're kind of holding Emily over Joaquim's head as like this, hey, you're ours now, you know, you got to do this. So yeah, that's really relevant. And they still have not only Casino, but Joaquim, lest we forget, you know what I mean? Who in the blog post, it was stated can beat Bam in a one-on-one fight. And it was just because of the grace of you know, whoever that Bam was able to beat him. So interesting stuff. Obviously we'll have to see where it goes, but I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I am. To answer the question, my thoughts are that I'm scared for Wang Nan. Not necessarily because of like the stuff you guys were saying, where it's like, I'm scared because his power level just doesn't quite stack up to some of the opponents that he might face, especially in the pursuit that he is. But I'm mainly scared because I don't think his mindset is in the right place. I think there's a lot of guilt that's playing on his head from the past, you know, quote unquote failures that he's gone through. And I think there's a lot of conflict in his mind about feeling useless, about feeling like he doesn't quite fit in with the team because everybody at a moment's notice can put in, you know, like, here's my chip, this is my contribution, I have X power, I have X, you know, ability, what have you. And really Wang Nan, like, you know, to be honest, if, you know, you can, I don't know, you can sugarcoat it if you want, right? But if you really sort of line up the stacks here, like Wang Nan has been mostly a burden, right? Whether it was like he was captured by somebody or he was confronted with an enemy and he simply wasn't strong enough to put up like an actual fight against them, what have you. I think like that coupled with, you know, way back with Beta, the whole thing where he like almost died, I think he's dealing with a lot of like just feelings of like uselessness and like he doesn't fit in, like he's not able to, like he's not going to be able to keep the promise that he made to his friends about bringing Hor Yang back. And so I think that, you know, not to mention stacked on top of the fact that Howard Ryun literally told him if he keeps traveling on this train, like one of his comrades is going to die. I mean, the only thing I think Wang Nan fears more than his death is one of his friends dying. So I think, again, what scares me the most is that his mindset, in a weird adjacent version of Bam's, he's like, all right, I just, like, if I can't do that, like, I just need to find a way where I stop putting my comrades in danger, or because of my weakness, like, one of my comrades dies. Where, you know, again, I think it's hard to say indefinitely if, like, staying with Bam's team or not, like, if one of those would have been, like, the definitive right call. But I think, like, what worries me is that, like, whatever situation he does get put in, it's like, his mindset isn't in the right place. And I think it's just going to perpetuate sort of a lot of the mental problems and, I mean, not mental problem, but like difficulties, obstacles that Wang Nan has had to deal with. And I think that it doesn't obviously help that, again, in the question they mentioned that something like Emily exists, which could, completely fuck over that team at a moment's notice. Or at the very least, that's something that has to be accounted for or watched out for, what have you. But I don't know. I think, like, in terms of powers, obviously the power scaling thing is an issue. Like, you can't, just tank like someone like Joaquin or what have you. But I think, I really do think it all stems from, like, the mindset. Because I think in the altercation at Train City, we do see that, like, when Wang Nan in the right headspace, given the correct tools and the time, like, can be an obstacle to somebody, right? I mean, granted, this was with Yiwa, but they both put up a fight against Castano, and, like, not to say that, like, if that fight had gone on, Castano would have won, what have you. But my point is, I think that Wang Nan and the mental place, the space he was in, was a lot more reliable, let's just say, than the one he's in now. And I think where he's at now, it puts his character in more danger than the, I guess, literal circumstances that they could be in. So.
For sure. So moving on to the next question we have by Anne 2005. Thank you, Anne. It says, as Endorsi said, quote, bring Kaiser's name is a secret code among the 10 families to get rid of the regulars. What do you think about Yuri telling Bomb to bring back Kaiser's name? Was it intentional? Yeah, so this is interesting in terms of code here. And again, kind of harkens back to my point before about there's more to the name than just, oh, no, he stole my name. No, like there's like a big deal about that in terms of what that is. I don't know yet. But yeah, Endorsi, being a smart chick, figures that out pretty quickly. And it is interesting that it's a secret code amongst 10 families to get rid of regulars. I don't know. I think, Yuri telling Bomb to bring it back is what it is. She's like, we're not supposed to know yet exactly what it is. She's like, just make sure you do it. I don't know, Gavin, you look like you're chomping at the bit.
So,
educate me.
Not really. I'm not gonna lie, when I first read this question, I almost pooped my pants a little bit because my first thought is I took it at face value, which was like, yeah, the secret code that is meaning behind what bring Kaiser's name literally was to get rid of regulars. So when I first read it and, I remembered Yuri saying that same thing to Bam, my first thought was like, you better not be trying to get rid of my best boy. Because I'm like, I literally started like going through this whole mental dilemma when I was like, no, like this can't be happening to Bam. And like, I actually got really nervous for a second. And then I stepped back and I was like, wait a minute. I am forgetting the one big keynote in all this. And that was, for a second in my life, I almost downplayed my love for Yuri. And then I realized that Yuri is not only the baddest of the G's, but she is the best girl. And she will never do my boy Bam dirty at all. And I almost had to hurt myself for ever forgetting that, because my love for her will always reign true. And it made me rethink this question in a different mindset, which actually is when she says this to Bam, it is quite literally almost with that same meaning, where obviously this is the code name to send regulars, to go and essentially become part of that whole convoluted mess. However, as stated before, when they went on this journey, Yuri was saying like, hey, I'm gonna have to test you hard, and you're gonna have to get through this, and I need to see it firsthand that you're able to. Now she is literally using this code name, which has ties to the 10 great families and all throughout. But in her telling Bam, it's the same rigmarole that any other regular would be going through. They tell them to get this name, they go and they try to get the name. That same, in-between process is the exact same. However, at the end of it, Yuri is telling this to Bam with the intentions of Bam overcoming Kaizen. It's not with the intentions of, I'm giving you this code word because I want you to then, die or lose your name and become a whole part of that mess. Like, that isn't the intentions behind her saying this. It's actually a test to Bam being like, this is the code word or the code name. You're going to have to do this, and you're going to have to win. Like, this is all stakes. Everything's out. You better put your big boy pants on, and you got to defeat this. So at first I thought of it with the mindset of, oh, she's trying to get rid of Bam. I'm done. And then I smacked myself back into reality and realized that this is just a test for Bam. And yes, there is, he is going to have to really fight for this, and it's not going to be easy, and he's going to have to overcome it. So I think it is just the same code word with the same meaning. She's going to have to fight him, although it isn't with the intention of getting rid of him, as that code word is used for. It is actually for him to overcome all of that whole situation, and then, beat Kaizen ultimately. So yes.
Well said.
So I actually took this a little. I took this pretty literally. In my mind, so we know that like yes, the mission or operation for Bam to take Kaizen's name is a literal test, right? Yuri's not letting them on the floor of death unless Bam does this. That was the test that she gave them. So like yeah, there's the the literal test in that sense. But I think also if bring Kaizen's name is the like the secret passcode that that certain families use, which basically means bring regulars to the station. I think Yuri's implication of like I want you to bring me Kaiser's name back quite literally means steal Kaiser's name and bring it back here. Like prove to me that you have what it takes to get rid of and dethrone someone like Kaiser, and then I will believe that you have what it takes to like go through the floor of death or triumph on whatever comes, because she states in her like little explanation, she's like, I'm going to be especially tough on you. So I think she does believe that this is a near impossible task to do, but like that's the point, is that Bam's gonna have to be able to overcome near impossible task if he hopes to not only get through the floor of death, but obviously ultimately get to even higher floors.
Yeah. Yep.
For sure. Want to fire off the next question?
Sure thing. All right, so next question we have comes from Smile Please. He says, now we know why Ren wanted to get rid of Anderosi despite her being a legitimate princess in season 1. He wanted to eliminate the rivals of the princesses of his family, the Lo Po Ba family, which are Lyle and Sheila Jihad. Thoughts on something that was planted so long ago finally coming back? So he had a question similar to that, which was basically another like, oh, isn't it cool to see Ran and Novik and that group like get a call back or come back into sort of the main focal point here. And I bring that up just because I something SIU, it's really nice to be able to like appreciate and really sort of get the full brunt of these moments, right, where he calls upon something in season 1 way long ago, and whether you forget about it or it's like something that stays in the back of your mind, you move through and then you get to a point where it's like, oh, wait a minute, like that thing connects to this thing all the way back here. And it's really cool to see that those, that they're not like just things he planted that he just straight forgot and no longer have relevancy. But that, it gives the world a little bit more breathing room, you know what I mean, in terms of like the lore and how expansive and connected everything and everyone in it feels, right? This moment, this thing that we saw happen in season 1 with Rice Ball, seeming to have it out for Anak and by extension Anderosi, which at first you're like, oh, okay, it's like, he's just being a jerk to Anak, and because Anderosi's defending Anak, he's like, oh, you're the enemy of my enemy or whatever. But that, like, no, there's a, much like Tower God, you learn that like everything is connected to something else, and that something else, whether it's 2 panels away, 5 panels away, 100 chapters, like everything has like everything is connected, and there's this big giant web of like people at the top that like trickle down to people in the middle and trickle down to people at the bottom, and it's just really nice and quite frankly impressive to see him weave this story through all those threads as consistently well as he does.
Gavin, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, echoing pretty much what Isaiah said. Very impressing, especially being able to track it back, because honestly, that was a memory that I never had or never stuck with me. Like I never thought that like when I read this question, or when we first saw it in the manhwa as we were reading, like I had to do a double take when I was like, huh, what do you mean? And then like just the fact that it's able, like when I like it when authors are able to slide in these little like Easter eggs that as you're reading it in the moment way back when you might not pick up on, but then when they're referenced back and you like relook at that whole scene, you get that whole new perspective that is different from what you initially read from. And that is just a sign of great storytelling when you're able to go back and reread it and see things from a whole different light. And that's really just what makes any normal story great, is when an author has an ability to do that, especially for one as much as a longevity as this has, because he started writing this, in middle school or something like that? Like for the amount of time that has, gone by since he's even referenced that point, and for him to even remember it and then somehow tie it back is just it's definitely a skill that he has and is able to really double down on. So I appreciate it. It's dope. We love you, SIU.
Well, don't move that camera off yourself. Too late. Because you could read our last question.
By Playmaker. Okay. If Haoryun prophecy was true, who do you think would die? And how do you think it will impact the story since no major character has died so far? I don't like how you said no major character has died so far. Are you inferring that a major character is dying next? Because it could have been a side character, like, unfortunately we lost Muntari, and, that was a side character, and now I'm actually getting really nervous because you said, that's the thing. I have this weird habit of dissecting the question and being, trying to really get in-depth, for
sure,
hints.
that's the fun in it. Yeah.
No, it's not the fun in it, Ian,
Okay,
because now I'm scared because you said main character, and I can't... so I have to pick someone. Wait, so I need to pick someone. Yeah, I need a minute. I can't think.
Okay. Well, I think... I don't want to sound mean here, but
Who's dying?
It's about damn time if somebody does.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
To be honest, I've said it before. I'm like, all right, I'm only like 10 more times away of getting really annoyed here. No, I'm like, there have been a lot of situations where it's like, oh my gosh, main character gets a fist through their chest or some wild stuff, and it's like, they're back, whatever. And fair enough, because all of these, like I said before, I'm not downplaying that. I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think there's relevancy to why the character is there or why they're not or whatever. And I don't think that there should just be a death inserted just for a death. There should definitely be a reason for it. So I fully understand that. But they've been alluding to this for a while now, and we've had some close calls, and nothing has been solidified. If anything, we've generally speaking have been able to beat the bad guys, and some of the bad guys have even joined our cause. Our team is insanely strong. We go up against some pretty rad opponents, don't get me wrong, but we've been able to make it out relatively unscathed, all things considered, especially for how dangerous this tower is. So they can consider themselves lucky. So all I have to say is that if and when they do decide to axe a main character, that it is someone that, it's not just we're going to, they're leading it up and then they throw I don't know. Because don't get me wrong, it would suck if any of them, it's going to suck when any of them die, and you'll see our reaction. We'll be like, no, I promise. But if it's someone I don't know, if Prince dies or something like that, I like Prince, don't get me wrong. I'm just sorry I had to throw him under the bus. But that's just an example. If Prince dies, dude, not trying to be mean, but give me a couple panels and life goes on. You know what I mean? I'm not, that's me. Maybe I'm cold, but as compared to someone like Kun, you know what I mean? It's okay. And I'm not saying that I want it to be Kun or whoever. All I'm saying is that if they're pumping this up as a thing that's going to happen, this death better have some impact, and not just in the moment, because it will automatically, but on the story as a whole, or maybe motivations and things like that are centralized around it. I always love in stories when they're able to kill a character but have that character still be a part of the story in a weird way, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a direct influence on the motivations of other characters throughout, or if it's certain axioms and morals and stuff that character had taught before and these people trying to exemplify now, etc. Kind of like Rowan, right? Rowan has had a significant impact on the story in death, right? She hasn't been alive the entire time we talk about her, but it has an infinite, a big impact on the story. And I hope that whatever character does die, if they do, that we're able to get that impact past the shock value of it. But wrapping up my point here, I think in order to do that, it's going to have to be a more main character, right? It can't even be one of our sweet and sours, but an offshoot. I think it's got to be someone that's pretty close, because we've had some scares already, but in order to pull that off, and again, I don't think it needs to be inserted for no reason, but if we are going to take that path, I don't think we go halfway. I think, I don't think we go 1 foot in the pool. I think we go balls out. You know what I mean? It's this is my choice. This is what we're doing. Bam. I did it. It's done. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts. I would assume the prophecy is true. I think in the blog post, again, we read that, they don't know specifically. They're okay, this is the path, and going down this path will result in X thing. And I can't really tell you who it's going to be or how it's going to become a thing necessarily until we get closer to that. But you could be pretty damn sure my word is going to be pretty accurate. So, I guess we got to brace ourselves, put our seatbelts on, and get ready for a potential cry fest when it comes to one of our next live read-throughs. But I don't know if you have
Are
any
you
other
gonna
thoughts.
cry?
No, but I mean, I'll watch Gavin cry, and that'll be interesting. So,
Man.
I don't know. Do you want to say something? Then, Gavin, if you've
Yeah.
collected yourself by that point, come back.
The problem with this saying, and I've had this problem ever since Haoyun first said it, because it's not the first time she's brought this up. She brought this up way back when Bam first aligned with Boro and their team. Is that, my God, is it fucking vague, bro? It's like, if you keep going down this path, a teammate will die. Okay. I mean, like, that could mean that. I mean, that just means that somebody that's on our team will die.
It could have been Muntari.
Yeah, if we keep doing this thing.
Sure.
And so my problem with it is sort of going back to the Wangnan thing of like, how Ryun told Wangnan this. Now, that's in Wangnan's head, which has led Wangnan to make this decision of leaving and separating from the team to go do X thing. Now, if Wangnan was to leave the team and die as a result of getting in an altercation that he might not have gotten in had he stayed with the team, did Haoyun just telling him this now put him in a situation where he would die if that didn't have to happen?
Yeah.
So, and it's like, it's this weird phrase where it's like, it feels like she's doing more harm by telling them this than not, because it's like, well, now every nigga's fucked up. We're all fucked up in the head, and it's like, well, fuck, any of us could die. And I'm not really an advocate for like, I hope they kill somebody soon, because I think if they can, because I agree with the sentiment that like, if you're gonna killing a character should be a very finite thing, and it should have an impact and should have purpose. So that being said, if you do it, it should make, my concern is that it makes the most sense, right? So obviously not in favor of like killing a character just for the, oh fuck, so-and-so's dead. But so I don't know, because I think like, again, done correctly, if any of the characters we know in the core team here, so Sweet and Sour and Bam's team die, I think it could work. Again, this is, done correctly. I do kind of think that just because, my critic brain here separating from the story, that like our main three, Bam, Kun, and Rack, are probably fine. So that is referring to anybody else there. But I mean, that still includes some pretty pivotal players in amongst the group here. And so I'm interested. I don't know. It makes me, I'm like, to be honest, like anybody that's not Bam, Kun, or Rack, I think is on the table as far as getting axed. But my concern, I guess, is I hope that, and I mean, I'm speaking about a story and a decision that's probably already been made, at least at the time of us having this, this video in reference to where the story is. But I hope that like the decision to axe off said person wasn't like, man, we've gone a long time without somebody dying. Like, we got to kill somebody, versus like the story that I've threaded and plotted out. Like, this character has to die in order for this story to keep going where I need it to go.
Gavin, have we collected ourselves yet?
We have collected ourselves. I was like trying to find, because there's like there's a line in the song that I like. I think it's by Earth Gang or something. I could have sworn it was in Blue Moon, but it's pretty much along the lines of like, it was like really quick, but it was like, don't date an anime like waifu, because like at the end she'll just want you to die, because like they just love the death of characters for the thrill of the story, because like it's able to build. It's like what you were saying, just like if you're able to apply the death of someone so well, it just makes that story so much better. And like, it was just on the back of my mind that I couldn't find it, but I do echo your thoughts, and I feel the same way. Like, nothing makes me more sadder and almost happier for the story presence when a main character dies, because in that death evoking so much emotion out of me makes me not only appreciate the work so much more, but it is a visceral sign that the author is doing something correctly to then make me so emotional and get that emotional response out of the outlet in which I'm reading. So it's actually more of a sign of respect when you're able to get me so down in my feels. And that's why I actually look forward to it, although I don't look forward to it at the same time, because I don't want it to happen, although I do need it to happen, because I do share a lot of sentiments that Ian has. If I was to guess or predict someone dying, it would have to be, I would say somebody who is on Wangnam's team specifically, especially if it's upcoming, because I feel like if, Wangnam is Prince Jihad and, needs a power spike, the fastest way to get a big power spike is to have somebody close to you or next to you die, and he is going on the train, and there is that probability. So in my eyes, who was that group? Missing Prince and Arc Daddy? Are those?
Maybe, yeah.
I think am I right, Isaiah, or do you not really know? Who's going on the train?
literally
Who's
not
going on the
paying
train with not Wangnam? It's Prince, Missing, Arc Daddy, Wangnam. Is that the four?
Prince, Missing, Arc
I
Daddy,
think.
yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So I feel like it's out of them,
think it's
barring
out of them?
Wangnam. So I would probably wager Arc Daddy.
That's my guess too.
If it
were out of them.
If it were out of them, because I mean, it could be Misang or Prince, but I feel like SIU wouldn't kill Misang or Prince. I don't know, just because they have such like a young presence in the story, like in terms of like age, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like
that'd be balls if you just like axed Misang. You know what I mean? He just like decapitates her on panel like some crazy shit. You'd be like, what the hell? Like, what's wrong with you?
Misang was my first thought out of her and Prince, actually. But then I thought about it, and I was like, if Arc Daddy's there, I have a real feeling it's him.
Because you know he's going to throw himself in front of whatever is going to harm the kids.
And that's what's going to make it hurt more, because you know he's going to be that selfless-ass dad who's going to hop in there to save the day, ultimately get iced, and Wang Nam's going to have to stand there with, you know, literally dead Arc Raptor in front of him and be like, well, I pooped myself. Now I need to put on my big boy pants. And that's, if there is a death being insinuated, I feel like it would have to be through that team. And if there's more than that, then you are really going to see me punch a wall. So let's hopefully not get to that point. So, yes.
Yep. Anyway, folks, those are our thoughts on the chapters that we went over. Again, thank you to everyone in the Discord that expressed their opinions and thoughts. And thank you to everyone who voted on the questions that they most wanted to hear. Really goes a long way and makes our life much easier in terms of our talking points. So in general, keep doing what you're doing. Really goes a long way. But folks, if you enjoyed the content today, please make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, sharing with your friends, and commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of today's discussion? What did you think of these chapters in particular? And what are your thoughts on Tower of God as a series? Make sure you guys are referring to our description, where we have links to all the different ways that you can support the channel, whether it be our merch line if you want to rep some AoA swag, whether it be our Patreon if you want exclusive benefits to the show while also directly supporting us, if it be our Twitch link when you want to catch us go live on Twitch at the same time as YouTube, whether it be our social media, whether it be our audio only platforms through things like Spotify, etc. These are all ways that you could help support the channel in any which way. And of course, join that community Discord, which we also have there as well, so you can voice your opinions like these folks have. You could chat with some of the brilliant people in our ever-growing community. Really proud to have you guys there, and we would love to have you as well if you're not part of the gang already. But until next time, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you on the flip. Peace.
Peace. Later.
You know what it is, dog. Ninjas are samurais, blaze of the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly.